Hey fellas, how's it going? Welcome back to BTM, to the Basketball Time Machine, the podcast with former NBA players about former NBA players. Before we get to today's guest, just a little reminder, if you want to hear more podcasts like this one, just make sure you hit that subscribe button so you always get notified once we upload a new podcast. All right, so let's go. Today's guest was not only an NBA All-Star, but still holds the record in blocks per game. Mark Eaton, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Mark, 5.6 blocks per game is just so incredible. At that time, were you aware that this might be a record for the ages?
No, I had no idea. I knew what the record was. It had been set in 1973, and that year was just a remarkable year.
All right. Your basketball journey is such an unusual one. Is it true that you started playing organized basketball when you were 20? Is that correct?
21, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I had been on the team in high school, but I sat on the end of the bench. Didn't enjoy the game very much. I was growing fast and pretty uncoordinated, and did not enjoy basketball.
I read that Wilt Chamberlain played a very important part in your career. Actually, there was this key moment, this key conversation that changed your entire basketball career. Can you just let me and the audience know what exactly happened?
Sure. So after junior college, I was playing at UCLA, and my first year there playing for Coach Larry Brown didn't go very well. I sat on the bench, and I think I averaged like 2.5 minutes a game or something like that. And I was pretty frustrated at the end of the year, and the new coach came in, a guy by the name of Larry Farmer, and I went to him and I said, "Hey, what do I need to work on for next year? Because I really want to start." And he gave me a list of about 10 things to do. So I'd go to the gym every day, and the gym at UCLA, which is this older gym, been around since the 1920s. Every afternoon, all the players in LA would get there and hoop with each other, like the greatest NBA pickup games ever. Magic was there, Norm Nixon, Michael Cooper, all these great players, and so those were the games we wanted to play in. And so I played in those games every afternoon in the summer, and these guys are so quick and so fast. I'm 7'4", 280 pounds, whatever then, and I just can't keep up with everybody. And so I'm on the sidelines. I'm thinking, man, this sucks. Like, how am I ever going to get this figured out? How am I ever going to compete? And about that same time, I feel this large presence behind me and this big hand on my shoulder, and I turn around and it's Wilt Chamberlain. Well, he used to come down and still hoop in the afternoons, even after he retired. He was such a great athlete that even after playing 12 or 15 years or whatever it was in the NBA, he would still come down from his house, come play basketball with us for a while. Then he'd go down to the beach in Santa Monica and play volleyball after that. So he grabbed me and he turned me around and he said, "Mark, first of all, you're never going to catch those faster younger guys. He says, you're just not going to do it." And he said, more importantly, I said, "Oh, thanks, Wilt. I already figured that out on my own." But he said, more importantly, it's not your job. Like, stop doing that. And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, well, come with me. And he grabbed me by the arm. He took me out on the court and he put me right in front of the basket. And he said, "You see this basket behind you? Your job is to stop players from getting there. Your job is to make them miss their shot and get the rebound, throw it up to the guard, and then let them go down the other end and score it. And your job is to cruise up to half court and kind of see what's going on, because you got to be like the last line of defense." And it was this pivotal light bulb moment for me where I finally understood what I needed to do out of the basketball court to succeed. I mean, he showed me the one thing that I could be great at. He said, I watch you out here and I see how good you are at playing defense. He's like, focus on that. Just do that one thing. And so I heeded that advice, and I started doing that on a daily basis. And a few years later, I break the NBA record for block shots based on that 5-minute conversation about really focusing in on the one thing I could be great at. And so when I go out and present, I call that knowing your job. Like, what's that one thing you're great at that you need to focus on and spend more time on? We all have a tendency to run around and think, well, I don't do this well, I don't do that well, I need to work on this, I need to work on that. And I'm saying, no, don't do that. Go back to the one thing you already do well and do more of it. Like, that's the key. And, I turned it into a 12-year NBA career from a 5-minute conversation I had with Wilt Chamberlain.
Incredible. Talking about your NBA career, you were drafted in 1982 by the Utah Jazz. What were your thoughts when you heard, okay, you're going to play in Utah?
Well, I just hoped to make the team, number one. I was a fourth-round pick, and the coach, Frank Layden, back then, the team was in a pretty bad spot, on the verge of going out of business, and they'd never had a winning season. And Frank came out and watched me play in the summer league I was playing in, and he said, I can tell you've been working. He said, I see just enough. You're kind of rough, but he said, if you'll come to our training camp a month early before any of the other players get there, get on our weight training program and work with our coaches, he said, I'll give you a chance to play for 1 year. And I think the salary was $45,000 at that time. And I said, Coach, that's all I'm looking for is a chance. And so I came to Salt Lake without really knowing what I was doing. I thought I was in pretty good shape when I got here. Man, I wasn't even close. And so they put me on this extreme weightlifting program and running sprints and working with the coaches. And but over time, they stuck with me. And the good part about coming to a bad team was they had the ability to let me get my feet wet out there a little bit and make some mistakes and let me play through those mistakes. And halfway through that year, they traded the starting center, Danny Shays, to Denver for $300,000 to make payroll. And I get the starting job. And then, I had to rethink everything again, because now I told myself, I don't want to just be a good backup center. Now I want to be a good starting center. And so I kind of doubled down on my preparation. But, what followed the next couple of years was that Frank took this team of kind of misfits and cast-offs from other teams and turned us into a winning team and created a culture that's still a part of the team today, some 35 years later.
Yeah, Frank Layden was unbelievable. He had such an incredible eye for talent. I mean, you weren't the only player that he discovered, John Stockton, but we're going to touch on it later.
Well, yeah, he had a philosophy that, he said, look, I can't afford to pay the big time players. So he said, I look for players from big programs, players that played at Michigan or Notre Dame or somewhere, or UCLA, where there was a winning tradition. Because he said, at least I know they know how to win, right? And so that was his mindset going into who he recruited for the team those early years.
Coming back to your rookie season, the Jazz were a totally different team in comparison to the John Stockton and Karl Malone era. You had guys like Adrian Dantley, Ricky Green, Darryl. Actually, some pretty talented guys. But who of the guys was the player that actually impressed you the most?
That first year, probably Adrian Dantley. He scored 30 points a night. He took great care of his body. He was kind of a pain in the butt to play with some days, but he was a mainstay, and he carried the franchise back then. Came in training camp in better shape than anybody else. And so I think from him, I just learned the value of preparation. I mean, I already knew a little bit of that, but he really got himself ready to play every single night. And that's the key in the NBA, is that consistency. When Karl Malone came a few years later, he told him the same thing. He's like, you can't just score 30 points one night and then disappear for a few games. Like, you got to bring it every night. And the only way you can bring it every night is if you get your body prepared to do that.
You averaged 4 points and almost 6 boards, and incredible as a rookie, 3.4 blocks a game. How satisfied were you with your rookie season in general?
I was pretty satisfied with it because I got some playing time. I got to become a starter over time. I felt like I could hang in the NBA. I felt like that just on defense alone, that teams valued that. And I think I came in like third in the NBA in block shots. And that was exciting for me because I really felt like I was beginning to make a mark. As everybody needs something they do well, and that you're noticed for, or acknowledged for in the NBA. That's how you establish your credo. And for me, it was blocking shots and playing defense.
In your second season, the Jazz actually make the playoffs. How was it playing the NBA playoffs for the first time?
It was scary and exciting at the same time. I think we played the Phoenix Suns, and they had Walter Davis and all these great players back then. We didn't know what we were doing, but it was exciting and it was fun. And for the city really got excited because the team had always been a losing team, and here we're giving the city and the fans some hope. They rallied behind us, and I think we played the Denver Nuggets in the first round, and then we played the Phoenix Suns in the second round. And And one of the writers from the Denver newspaper had said, I think we were down, a game or two in the series, and he said the Jazz are out. They have no heart. And he wrote that in the column, which immediately went on our locker room wall. The city grabbed a hold of it, and there's some videos out there on YouTube somewhere of everybody having these big heart signs, and it became kind of a rallying cry for the team and the city.
Oh, nice.
And cost the Nuggets that series.
Oh, the poor guy. In 1984, John Stockton was drafted, and he actually gets booed on the day of the draft. Incredible. Do you remember your first impression of John, meeting him for the first time?
Well, I'd never heard of Gonzaga, didn't know where it was. And, and looking at John just walking off the street, he looks like anybody else walking down the street. And so you think, well, okay, I've never heard of this guy. I don't know anything about him, but let's see what he's got. And pretty quickly, he established himself as somebody who could come in and give some good backup minutes to Ricky Green. And within a year or two, it was really apparent that he was had some real skills on the floor. His court sense, his ability to see the floor, making everybody else better around him. I think that became apparent very quickly, and we didn't know how good he was going to become. That he was going to be the all-time leader in steals and assists in the history of the NBA, but it was clear he was something special.
That season was your record-setting season, but also not only the 5.6 blocks happened, but also suddenly you averaged like 10 points a game. How did that happen all of a sudden?
Adrian Dantley and I used to play a little pick and roll, and he liked playing with me because I could get him open. Like, I actually set a pick. Like, I didn't just go up there and kind of, fake it like everybody is now. Our job was to lay meat on people. And so I would get him open, and he'd get that little rocker step going, and he'd start coming over towards the free throw line, and I'd just roll to the basket, and he'd throw me up these nice little soft lobs, and we probably did that 4 or 5 times a game. So he liked it because it got him a lot more open. He got more shots out of the deal as well. But I think that's where it came from. And I think that year, too, we had some injuries. I think John Drew got hurt. We had a couple of guys that went down that were scorers, and so they needed a little bit more. But then came the mailman the next year, and then everything changed.
Yes, that perfectly brings me to the next question. We just talked about that nobody saw it coming that John Stockton would become the all-time leader in steals and assists. When Malone entered, do you remember, did you have that feeling, okay, this guy is something special? Or in general, what was your first impression of the mailman?
He was pretty wild when he first showed up. He ran a lot. He jumped in the stands. He had a lot of energy. He was like the kid in the candy store, just trying to impress everybody. And he'd gotten kind of a couple of knocks in the draft and dropped down a couple of notches. And he had wanted to go to the Mavericks because that's pretty close to where he grew up. And so I think it was a little bit of a shock for him to end up in Utah initially. So he kind of worked extra hard to make a big impression. And I can remember being like 5 feet away from him just throwing the passes at me like at 100 miles an hour. And he had a lot of raw strength and a lot of raw talent. And so it took a couple of years for him to kind of settle in, and he played behind Adrian Dantley for a while, and then they traded once Carl got established, and they traded AD to the Pistons. But he just had that raw bulk, and he once he learned how to play low post, and he just punished guys down there, and it was so much fun playing with him. Although for me offensively, the way the rules were back then, my job was to stand almost up at half court so that my defensive player who's guarding me had to stay above the free throw line, so he had operating room. So that's why my point production went down. But I still blame him for that.
The 80s were so physical, especially in comparison to today's game. Was there any specific team you hated to play against? And I'm not talking about the Bad Boy Pistons, another team.
Well, the Pistons were at the top of the list. There's no question about that. I think all the games were physical back then. We had guys like Maurice Lucas who were just kind of those enforcer guys that, would always try and take a shot at you here or there. You'd go up for a rebound and they'd elbow you in the ribs. It was just, like I said, an era. Like I came in with, guys like Bob Lanier and Artis Gilmore and guys like that they knew how to hold, they knew how to leverage their bodies. And so it was a very physical time. I learned pretty quickly I needed to get a lot stronger if I was going to hold my own in the paint. But yeah, we banged bodies, it was a real fun time to play in the NBA. And we had rules like no layups. Like if you came in the paint, you were going down.
Yes.
And I hear Magic talk about that still, because they had the same rule with the Lakers back then. But it was just a fun time. And yeah, there were fights frequently. And, the guys would come off the bench to defend their teammates. And I kind of really enjoyed that. I kind of missed that to a certain part. I mean, you don't want guys to get hurt. But,
yes.
the competitive part of that is something that's just became a part of our fabric of who we were. And it toughened us up. It made us better as a team. And we went out there a little bit stronger because we knew we had each other's backs out on the court.
Yeah. You just mentioned that's actually totally missing today's game. As a fan, it had this feeling, okay, anything could happen. And now you know that the max is going to be, they're going to shove each other a little and that's it. But back then, yeah. Ooh, missing those days. The 80s were also, to me, the decade of the best bigs ever. I mean, you had guys like Kareem, Moses, Hakeem, Robert Parrish, and who of the guys was the toughest to guard? And please exclude the skyhook. I don't want to make it easy for you.
No, I'd say of that group that you mentioned, and certainly Robert Parrish was great because those guys ran that fast break so well. And he ran the floor so well, he was hard to keep up with. But for me personally, Hakeem Olajuwon, when he came into the NBA and he played for the Rockets, and they were in our division, so we played them all the time. And he came with that soccer background, and having the quick feet from growing up playing football, he had brought a whole new dimension to the center position that we'd never seen before, and so. That became probably my biggest challenge was playing him. And we played him in the playoffs a lot, and we played him 6 or 7 times during the regular season. So he gave me a lot of grief and was probably my biggest challenge from the 5 position. But there's a lot of other great guys out there too. I mean, Patrick Ewing too fits right in there.
I'm always campaigning that Hakeem Olajuwon is, to me, one of the best 3 bigs ever, and I always get laughed at, but to me, Hakeem's footwork was just so incredible, and that guy had to be a nightmare to guard, as you mentioned.
From personal experience, I can tell you, yes, he is.
1989 was a special year for you. You actually became an all-star. From a guy that didn't play organized basketball until he was 21, you actually are among the best of the world. Do you remember the day when you got told, hey, you're going to be on the team?
Yeah, I think somebody from the team called me and told me I'd made the reserve list, which to me was more important than even what the fans had to think, because the reserves were chosen by the coaches. And to me, that was the ultimate sign of respect, that the other coaches in the Western Conference thought that I was that good, or created that many problems anyway. So I remember that, and it was an extraordinary experience going to Houston and playing there and being on the bus with all the other All-Stars, Alex English and Dale Ellis and Chris Mullen and Kareem and everybody else that was on that team. I just was pinching myself like, am I really on this bus with all these guys with a police escort going to the game? That was pretty fun.
Were you nervous going into this game?
I was, but what had happened is that, we had Hakeem, we had myself, we had Kevin Duckworth, who played for the Blazers, and Magic was supposed to play, and that was I can't remember if he's hurt, that was the year when he had his big announcement, but and Kareem was retiring, and so he gave up his spot for Kareem. Well, now, who are you going to put in the game, me or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? So there was 4 centers. And so there wasn't a lot of playing time that game. And Pat Riley was the coach. So I just played like 5 minutes, but I'm like, hey, I'm happy if I get a rebound, get a block shot, sit down, and just enjoy it. It was 40,000 people in the Houston Astrodome. It was a mind-blowing experience, and I just kind of soaked it all in.
You played in the NBA until 1993, and you only missed 9 games in your first 10 seasons. Could you please tell the younger listeners that resting during the season is a joke nowadays?
Well, that's unless you're watching the Chicago Bulls the last few days.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a different era. I mean, I wanted to play every minute of every game, and Carl was the same way. John Stockton was the same way. We lived to play, and we used to give each other grief if you had an owie or something, you had to take a game off, and we prepared ourselves well. We spent extra time in the weight room. We spent extra time running. We had great care here in terms of some of the physical therapists and chiropractors and things that we would see back then who assisted us in staying healthy and getting back quickly when there was an issue. So that all played into it as well. But it was really a pride thing. Like, we wanted to be out there every day. And so it's hard for us. We talk about this all the time because I just saw Carl the other day and we were talking about it again. These young guys, like, geez, they take 3 games off. They got hurt a big toe or a hangnail or,
yes.
It's kind of tough for us that played in the 80s and 90s to watch that. Yes.
Yeah, I believe that. How special is it to you that you actually played your entire career for one franchise?
It is very special to me because I didn't anticipate that coming in. I thought I would bounce around from team to team, but the franchise made a commitment to me, and I know they had chances to trade me, but it was special to me because I knew that they counted on me to do some very specific things out on the court. I made our team better by playing great defense, by clogging up the paint, by stopping guys at the hoop, and that created a base and a foundation that the team could work with and build off of. And I wasn't the sexiest player, the fastest player, the best scorer, anything like that, but I did my job really well, and I think the team management and ownership appreciated that, and so it was a special thing to be able to play my entire career here.
When you retired, you were, I think, 36. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, something like that. 37. I can't remember. Yeah.
Was there this key moment where you thought, okay, I have enough, or that's it? Was there a special occasion or something that happened, or?
Yeah, the last season I played, I hurt my knee in training camp, and I had to have surgery on it, and I missed like 10 games, and I probably came back a little too quick, and I was wearing one of those god-awful big knee braces and trying to run with that thing. And, you push yourself pretty hard to get in the kind of condition you need to be to be competitive in the NBA. And it was starting to take a toll on my body. And, I started late. I mean, it didn't start till I was 25.
Yes.
And so at the end of the year, I started having issues like, I couldn't feel my hip. I couldn't feel the back of my leg. I had some pretty severe, nerve injury thing going on. And so it just got to the point where my body just couldn't, it wouldn't compete at the level I needed it to compete at. It just said, we got to find another job because this is not, we're kind of at the end of the road here. And so it was frustrating. And I spent the better part of the next year trying to get healthy and get better. And it just wasn't coming together. And I went back to training camp the following year for about 3 days. And I'm like 15 yards behind everybody else running and stuff. And I said, okay, this is it, time to hang it up. It was hard to do because you work so hard and you get at the top of your game and then you just have this short lifespan. And then all of a sudden, bam, 10 years goes by like that. And then a couple more years and you're out of there.
As a shot blocker, you always have the risk of somebody actually dunking on you. Was it? Yeah, understandable. Was it extra satisfying blocking the high flyers, guys like Dominique Wilkins or the Jordans of the world, if you could actually get those guys? In hindsight, yeah. I think in the moment in the game, it was really just trying to guard the basket. And yeah, it's a risk as a shot blocker. If you're going to go after guys, you're going to get dunked on. And of course, those are the ones you end up seeing on YouTube. But that's part of the risk of being willing to stand in the gap for your team. And so it was, I got dunked on a few times, but I also blocked a lot of shots, and I also made guys think twice about coming in the paint.
and
Yes.
that was just kind of one of the risks of being the 5-man in there. But somebody had to do it, right? Somebody had to take that stand, and you might get by me once, but you're probably not going to get by me twice. And the next time you're going on the floor, and hopefully the time after that, you think twice about even coming in the paint.
Yes, I was about to say, in that season where you blocked 5.6 players a game, there's no way 5 players dunked on you a game. So I think you won that competition.
No, I think I came out on the top of the average there.
Yes,
for sure. I didn't get dunked on very often. I mean, it happened once in a while, but I usually got them.
You actually be surprised. I checked on YouTube, and the first videos that pop up are your shot blocks, not people dunking on you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so
pushing them down.
Yes.
Downvote those other ones.
So the next question is something that I'm really curious about. As a fan, you often hear that NBA players, after their basketball career, they get into trouble, they get bankrupt, and having many kind of different issues. But you are actually the living proof that you can even do something more inspiring after your NBA career. You were award-winning motivational speaker. You are a best-selling author, which is incredible. I would like to know, how did this happen? Because you weren't a motivational speaker before your NBA career or during your NBA career. You weren't a best-selling author during your NBA days. So please take me through the process of all those accomplishments.
No, I'm pretty much an introvert. I'd rather sit in a corner and read a book. But people had always asked me to come and tell my story of how I went from an auto mechanic to a basketball player. And probably 10 years after I retired, I'd been doing some other things, running youth programs. I've been in the restaurant business. I was doing some broadcasting. And it was really kind of thinking about, well, what's the next 10 years going to look like? What am I going to do next? And that's where this idea of becoming a motivational speaker came from, because I thought, I've got some friends that do it. And I thought, well, what if I took my story and really put it in a business presentation? And that was just the question I started with. And it took me the better part of 3 years to figure that out, in wandering around and trying different things. But I knew that if I stuck with it, that I'd figure something out. And I eventually found a coach who knew exactly what I was trying to do and was able to help me create a presentation, the 4 commitments of a winning team, that not only told my story, but helped people become more successful at business. And once I combined those two things, that's when things really started picking up. And I mean, you're still an entrepreneur. There's still sales and marketing, all the stuff that has to go with it. But I have a message that's solid, that people get inspiration and takeaways from, and that's what's kept me going. And then writing the book helped as well. But I've really had last 4 or 5 years have been tremendously successful doing speaking.
Okay, how can I get a hold of your book?
You can find on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, The 4 Commitments of a Winning Team. Or you can go to my website, 7foot4.com/book, and there's some other links there. It's widely available.
40 years ago, if somebody would have told you, hey, you're going to be an NBA All-Star, you're going to be the record holder for blocks per game for an entire season, you're going to be a successful motivational speaker, you're going to be a best-selling author, would you have believed that? No way. When I was a mechanic, my aspiration was to own my own auto shop somewhere in Northern California. So, nope. I mean, it's just, it's a combination of people coming along and showing me what I needed to do next, and my own willingness to take a risk and say, okay, I'll try this for a while and see what happens. And those two things, I think, combined is what helped me get to where I'm at now. But I never think I know it all. I'm always trying to learn more, figure out another way, better way to do it. And I think that ability to be coachable has served me well. I mean, sometimes I listen to too many people, but in general, I've had these coaches and people who have come alongside of me, both in basketball and in business, who have shown me how to do it. And I think what I've learned from that is it's not about recreating the wheel, right? It's about learning what really works and trying to emulate it in your own way. Do you still have any goals you want to achieve? Because to me, it sounds like you've done enough for 2 lives.
I think that since I got the book done, I've started thinking about how else can I take that knowledge and put it into different channels, such as on video. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at now is I love speaking and I'd love to have a bigger online presence. And so that's the objective for 2019.
All right. So we're almost heading to the end. If you were on a lonely island and you could take 1 CD and 1 movie, what's it going to be?
Oh my gosh. 1 CD and 1 movie I got to watch over and over and over again?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So you better pick carefully.
Oh, wow. Well, let's see. I probably have to take a Beatles CD with me because I grew up on those guys. I love the Beatles. And then 1 book.
No, 1 movie.
Oh, 1 movie.
But you can also take 1 book.
Well,
I'm generous
I
today.
don't want to go there. Let's see. 1 movie. 1 movie that I really like. That's be something that inspires me. I don't know. I always, the movie I always turn on is there's an old John Wayne movie called, I think it's called Rio Grande with
Nice.
with Dean Martin and that older guy, kind of the cackly voice. I mean, we've watched that movie 1,000 times. I watched it when my kids were little. That'd probably be the movie I take. It's just entertaining and fun.
Mark Eaton, thanks for being on the show.
All right. Thank you, man. It was great.